All right, so it's time to take a look at what anti-discrimination looks like, because anti-discrimination law is absolutely ridiculous and leads to people of protected characteristics getting massive payouts for stupid little things, and that's what we'll look at in this article, in this segment. And before I go further, promotion that we've got on the website, we've got a new video from Carl and Stelios where they talk about liberalism. The video is called "Why Liberalism is a Universal Asset," and despite the title and the description, this is not a discussion that they are both agreeing on. It's more of a debate that Carl and Stelios are having on the concept of liberalism and classical liberalism in particular, where Carl is going against it and Stelios is arguing in favour of it. So it isn't just necessarily a discussion that they both agree on, it is a more contentious debate between the two of them. Well, I say contentious, friendly debate between the two of them, despite the death stares that they are throwing at each other.
There was a weird moment where Stelios pulled off his slipper and started throwing them at Carl.
Started beating him.
Shouting glory to Iraq. But anyway, you'll have to go and watch it and find out if that happened or not.
I don't know if Greek Stelios would do something. Glory to Erdogan. No, he certainly wouldn't do that. But you can get access to the premium content we have on the website.
Find out if I'm lying.
£5 a month, and yes, you can test out Callum's baseless lies by watching the video all the way through. Anyway, so I saw this story that was just so... It just exemplified everything wrong with the US and the West in particular, with how it treats claims of allegations of racism, allegations of racial discrimination, and how it rewards people of protected characteristics for what I consider to be bad behaviour, and awards them with millions of dollars. So this New York Times article came out and blew up, where she said Equinox, who are a gym company based in New York, fired her for being a black woman, and the jury agreed and gave her $11.25 million for it. Stunning and brave.
Yes.
Here we have the header
Totally
image,
earned.
where if you're not watching, it's a stunning and brave independent black woman.
You see that necklace?
Oh God, it's a guillotine. I hadn't noticed that.
Guillotine for a necklace.
Okay, that's a trustworthy character if I've ever seen one.
I kind of want one.
Her looking resolute, her looking strong, eyes closed. She's thinking of MLK. She's thinking this is what he wanted. And I'll just read through some of this article and then go into a bit more detail as we go along, because it is seriously ridiculous. So between 2018 and 2019, Robin Europe, that's the woman, a former professional bodybuilder, worked at an Equinox on the Upper East Side where she managed personal trainers. All seems pretty normal so far. Years earlier, as a scholarship student at Brearley, the girls' school several blocks away, where she began in 7th grade, commuting from Carnacy to and then Coney Island, she had experienced the coded bias of privileged teenagers, because there was only one other black student in her class. Now, I looked into this. I don't know if it was the case when she was going to school there, but Brearley, on their website, brags at the fact that they have over 50% non-white students of colour. So
Massive overrepresentation of them.
Massive overrepresentation indeed, but no, she was still experiencing coded privilege, so let's find out. But despite that, she was still not prepared for what she described as crass, unfiltered expressions of prejudice from male colleagues in an expensive gym, awash with the scent of eucalyptus oil, if not the base notes of enlightenment. I don't know why they type out articles like this, why they write them like this, because I know you're trying to lay on the narrative thick, but this isn't poetry class, this isn't poetry 101, this isn't English in your first grade or whatever you're doing. Please just write the articles like a normal bloody human being, for the love of God. Ms. Europe's tenure at the club was short-lived. Equinox terminated her employment in less than a year because the company said she was late 47 times in the course of 10 months. Open and shut case, there you go. That's more than once a week. And we don't have, throughout this entire article, we don't have any information on how late she was each of these times. And just because it's more than once a week doesn't mean that these didn't cluster. So maybe she was late for work every single day.
I hate to be rude,
over a week.
I think this might be a case of black privilege, in fact.
Yes, in fact, because I feel like if I had been late for work over once a week, in the space of less than a year,
They keep having a chat with you about it.
I'd get fired. I've worked in call centres before where I've been late once for the first time after working there for a year, and they've said, this happens again, you're fired.
Yeah.
Whereas if I had, broke out the shoe polish that morning, maybe they'd have gone a bit more leniently on me.
Would they?
I mean, maybe.
Harry, you've clearly blacked up. You're fired. But is it because I'm black? You're not black.
What do you mean, you people? We didn't say you people, Harry. Now please get out. Why you gotta hurt him? Keep a brother down.
The civil rights case of our time. Harry versus Vodafone.
Ms. Europe held a different view of her firing. Because of course she did. You get fired. Everyone has a different view of their firing when you're fired. You go, I didn't deserve this. And they go, you were late every single week. Get out. Believing that her lateness was merely a pretext for discrimination, because of course it was. Because of course, that's what they will say. People in protected classes can get away with whatever they want because they know if they get in trouble for it, they can literally just hire a legal team of progressives who will sue the company for it and win you millions of dollars. As happened here, she filed a lawsuit in a Manhattan federal court, arguing she'd been subjected to a hostile work environment and eventually let go because of her race and gender. Last week, a predominantly white jury of 5 women and 3 men agreed, delivering a verdict in a little over an hour. The next day, they awarded her $11.25 million in damages. And what kind of, 5 women, fine, they're going to be immediately more susceptible to this sort of thing. But it took less than a little over an hour. What would these men look like? I can imagine that they would be just finishing off their, soy milk lattes and such. They'd be overflowing with estrogen. I have a potential image of what I imagine these 3 men looked like. Have you seen this video going around?
No, I haven't. You should describe it for people listening.
So for those listening, it's a man with a, shall we say, dysgenic features, bright ginger hair, soy beard, soy glasses, soy nose, soy facial expression on his TikTok responding to a question, does your wife's boyfriend enjoy these videos? And you can see, and I've watched the video, this is entirely true, the captions say, so yes, to answer your question, my spouse's partner does enjoy these videos. Self-report, but these are the kinds of men that you can expect to see on a New York jury near you if you ever find yourself in trouble, or potentially suing a company for racial discrimination, in which case, good on you. You're going to get every single penny you asked for and probably an extra $10 million on top of it, because this is a man who is led by women. And these are the kinds that we can expect. But once again, let's go back to the article. $11.25 million. There's got to be some pretty harsh allegations of the kind of racial discrimination that was going on.
Well, every day she was late, they did call her the N-word.
And then burnt a cross in front of her. They said, okay, this is new official gym membership clothes, and they handed her a white hood. Yeah. I can only assume that these.
She sat down at her desk, and someone had written the word "monkey" on her screen.
One time, one of her staff, one of her colleagues, came up and tried to scrub her clean, so to speak.
Yeah, none of this happened.
None of it happened.
None of it happened.
Obviously, none of it happened. And they bring up some other cases that are relatively similar. They bring up the recent Donald Trump case, where it says, and this is really telling, and this is the point that really needs to be hammered home here. In both cases, the process and outcomes suggest the ways in which recent transformative social movements around race and gender might reframe the way that juries think about the long shadow of emotional disruption that bigotry or sexual violence can produce. So basically, we have propagandized the entire population into believing social justice BS, and now if you are a white person, you are not going to be getting a fair trial, and if you are a person who exists under a protected characteristic, you will get a trial overwhelmingly stacked in your favour, even if what you're coming out with is absolute nonsense.
Because we just gave you a list of examples of actual racism, you could say, in a courtroom. And instead, they've come out with, what if we reprogram everyone, as you say?
Yep. Because of the way that the affirmative action and discrimination laws exist and how they work, you can basically sue for anything. And if you are, like I say, a member of a protected characteristic, if you get fired for anything, you can do the same thing, and you can come up with any old thing out of your back pocket. Oh, they looked at me, they gave me the side eye, and we'll see the example. So, do you want to see?
The company had a white presence.
Yep. Do you want to hear the examples? Let's get to the examples.
Sure. Let's see if they're anywhere near as bad as what we said.
So the case revolved in large part around allegations that a manager who reported to Ms. Europe, a middle-aged white man whom she described as insulated by his relationships with people above her, refused to accept her as his supervisor. Probably because you were late every single week and it made you seem like you were unfit to be a supervisor. Maybe, that's just my speculation. She claimed that he repeatedly delivered his vulgar takes on black female bodies, presumably meaning complimented women who went to the gym, referred...
Yeah, what does that mean? That could literally be him sitting there being like, God, I love black women.
Oh, he did. We'll see why.
Oh.
We'll see that he did as well.
But she's like, I'm not having that.
Yep. He referred to non-white employees as lazy, which I assume means that he specifically named certain lazy staff members who happened to be non-white. I'm sure he didn't just go, God, all Mexicans are lazy, aren't they? No, he probably went, and Javier there is not working very hard. We should make him work a bit harder because he's being lazy. We should get on that. And also expressed the hope that he could get them fired. Well, managers just be like that sometimes, I'm sad to say. He also called one black co-worker autistic. That's not worth $11 million in damages. That's not even directed at you. That's directed at a different worker.
God damn, I'm bankrupt. That's
I know, right? In the early spring of 2019, the suit claimed he demanded that his boss wait outside the gym with him for a young black woman to leave a cafe where she worked so he could make a pass at her on the theory that he would better be better positioned with a black person standing next to him. Ms. Europe, according to the complaint, refused to be a racial pawn. So he wanted
her to be a wingman?
Basically, he asked her to wingman him, and she said, "What, you racist or something?" And he's like, "She's literally black, though." It's like, I mean, seriously, this is not worth $11 million. And the accumulation of these incidents, she testified, made her time at Equinox so stressful. And I believe that these are all of the allegations. These are all of the allegations. These 4 allegations.
Oh God, I'm dying of stress.
Are enough to bring back to mean that her bulimia that she struggled with for much of her life worsened. Her physical illnesses got worse, and this is terrible. People who suffer bulimia, that's a terrible thing to suffer through. But it says, while working her condition was bad enough she began vomiting several times a day and started to throw up blood. She eventually had to enter a treatment program for eating disorders. I'm sorry, lady. You are a professional bodybuilder, and obviously this bulimia is probably a result of the kind of things that you've had to do with your diet to be able to get your body into peak physical condition so that you can, go to these bodybuilding competitions and display yourself there. But if, as a result of that, just these few things, this guy going, "Hey bro, can you wingman me for 5 minutes?" has you vomiting blood, maybe you should speak to a therapist before you go back to work.
Are you really fit for the workforce? If that's at the point at which you're there going to go, I'm dying.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to be unsympathetic here. This is a terrible thing to go through. I wouldn't wish this on anybody. But maybe the problem is with you. If you really can't...
I am a surgeon.
If you really can't handle a workplace like this without vomiting blood, maybe you should... I mean, she eventually did go to a treatment program, but maybe you should have done that first. And then we get on to her lawyers. All of them women at Crumilla, which describes itself as a feminist litigation firm, argue that their clients' complaints to male bosses went unheard. On the witness stand, she talked about an incident that left her feeling especially defeated. Oh yeah, this is the only other allegation as well. One evening in June 2019, she was in her office when she got a call from someone who dealt directly with members, a woman who was talking to a client who had specifically asked for a white trainer. She explained that requests like that exposed the company to liability and would need to be handled by a supervisor, whom she assumed would tell the client that that what he was asking for was inappropriate. She recounted how upset she had been over her co-worker's willingness to relay the request as though it would be good customer service to fulfill it. When she told her boss, he went ahead and let the client have a white trainer anyway. Okay.
The reason I laugh is I currently get adverts, and they're like therapy adverts, in which the therapist is like, I specifically asked for black women therapists, and they'll provide it.
Yeah, of course. That's the thing. If it had been somebody over the phone going, "Hey, can I have a specifically black trainer?" No issue.
No issues
There
whatsoever.
would be no problem because it's the protected class. It's only if you say, I want somebody, if it's anything non-white, if I want an Asian trainer.
Didn't you go to an all-female lawyer team for some
feminist lawyer team?
I find it unbearable how double-sided life is, but that's
it's absolutely ridiculous. And this picture will haunt your nightmares. If you ever say hello to a woman the wrong way on the street, these are the people who will be handling the case.
I mean, to be honest, the reason this terrifies me is not because these people are going to bankrupt you for saying hello. It's more because...
Although they probably will do that.
Yeah, they will do that. But these people, I don't think, see the law as anything sacred. They just simply see it as a tool to get their way.
It's you're pretty much bang on right there, as we'll get to later on. The article actually continues as well, saying, although he was reprimanded by a superior in writing a week later, so he provides the white trainer, gets in trouble for it, so she should be happy.
Okay.
That's basically what she was asking for. And according to a spokesman at Equinox, was fired 1 year after that. Ms. Europe happened to receive a second disciplinary warning for lateness on the same day that she had written an email bringing the issue to the attention of managers and people in human resources. 3 months later, she was fired. I'm sorry to break this to you, lady, but you can bring a problem to the attention of your supervisors while also still being late every single week and deserving being told off for that.
Yeah, I mean, the conversation there is, were you late?
Yes, and Ms. Europe never denied that she was often late for work, but her lawyers had presented...
reason?
No, and it doesn't say how late she was each time as well. I mean, late could mean anything from 5 minutes to, 3 hours, so who knows? And once
For some
again,
reason, she doesn't want to talk about that aspect.
no, it's not mentioned in here because it might make her look bad. Not that the actual context makes her look good anyway. Her lawyers had presented juries with a chart indicating how many other people also failed to show up on time, though with relatively few consequences. Once again, no context for how often, how late they were. Was it once a week? I doubt it. In their motion to have the case re-evaluated, lawyers for Equinox did not dispute that the racially and sexually charged comments made by her subordinate had occurred, but maintained that they were too few to support claims of a hostile workplace, which sounds perfectly reasonable to me, as far as I'm concerned. Beyond that, they maintained that the emotional distress she suffered as a function of her time at the gym was not egregious enough, and just to show the kind of average IQ that the New York Times believes that they are working with their own readers, it just says a legal term. Egregious enough, a legal term, just in case you didn't know what egregious means. It's not just a legal term either, it's a word you can use outside of the courtroom, but okay. Just for the sub 90 IQ morons
Lawyer,
reading.
a person who does law.
I know. It wasn't egregious enough to warrant the amount of money the jury had recommended. In November, they give another example of something else like this happening in this article. A federal jury in Texas awarded $366 million to a black saleswoman who had sued FedEx over discrimination in a case that was thought to deliver the largest ever verdict in litigation involving employment and racial bias. 3 months later, a federal judge rejected the company's bid to throw out the award or reduce it, which is just awful business, if you ask me, because they don't give any context for that. But if it's anything like this, if as little as this can get you $11.25 million when you were fired, as far as I can tell through this article, for perfectly reasonable reasons.
But that's the thing. Again, this is just a telling statement about the West. If you can accuse a company of something morally wrong, racism in the West, and even if it's not real, if there's just the threat of it becoming something you're associated with, they'll just throw money at you to go away. Because it's cheaper.
If literally asking somebody, a black woman, to wingman you while you try and hit on a black cutie who's like a cute person who's coming out of the cafe is enough to be called racist, then you've got to remember as well that racism is considered an excuse for physical violence as long as the person being racist is white and the person they're being racist to is black. That if you're being racist to a black person as a white person,
costs.
It's not just huge costs. That's an excuse that most people will justify for why it's okay to punch you in the face or beat you up, as well. Especially in a place like New York.
I mean, you would think the law would take it more serious, those kind of allegations.
No, of course they don't.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out that this is just the way that society's been going for a while, because we've got to remember that being on time is quite racist. If we cast our minds back to this from the African American History Museum, History and Culture, where it pointed out white culture, including things like the Protestant work ethic, hard work, that's evil and white, and in the next one as well. This is always just a fun one to go back to, time, following rigid time schedules and viewing time as a commodity. I did also see this person on Twitter, in the next one, please, John, pointing out that some workplaces and universities have stopped punishing tardiness because different cultures have different perceptions of time. Provided some examples, and I found this one that he pointed out in the next link, please. This is from the Stanford Social Innovation Review, The Bias of Professionalism Standards. And this is from 2019. Can you tell what professionalism means? Professionalism is coded language for white supremacy.
Yeah.
Are you trying to hold back the tears? Is it a laugh or cry situation here?
It's a Joker situation.
You wouldn't get it. It's white favoritism in workplaces. They include pieces like puzzle pieces, Companies want to know if you're a cultural fit, a concept exemplified by people describing the ideal employee as someone they would go to lunch with. 2016 survey found that 84% of employers strongly focused on cultural fit, which means that you ask in the interview, are you easy to get along with, would you say? That's racist. That's a no. If that's the response.
Well, you can't write that down, otherwise I'll sue you for $11 million.
I guess you're hired. Congratulations.
There we are. The system works.
There you go. I mean, I won't be inviting you to any lunches, but then again, maybe I will have to, because if not, yeah, there's $11 million for you. And they point out timeliness in this as well, where they give all sorts of reasons for why basically black and immigrant communities, as they say, have a deep ancestral connection to polychronic cultural orientation. Some people of colour push against this by adopting a monochronic orientation, but many hold on to their polychronic work style. As a result, they may lose their jobs more often in a culture biased against their norms, which is basically a fancy way of saying they're late more often, but it's cultural discrimination. It's being racist.
God, I love this. It's like when people try and argue that Ebonics is some kind of English dialect, and clearly not you speaking wrong.
Yep. And this is why we need to start teaching people in school in Ebonics, which will not help them.
You know, it's a real movement, right?
No, I know.
Yeah.
I know. John McWhorter's talked about it quite a few times and basically just explained over and over again, this will not help people. If you teach them in Ebonics in school, it will just set them up for failure when they actually go into the real world where nobody else speaks in Ebonics outside of their neighbourhood. But no, that's racist.
But also even trying to classify as something other than just not speaking English correctly. I mean, it's just mad. I mean, there are definitely plenty of regional accents in the UK where if a person picks it up and doesn't learn to speak properly in the regional accent, they'll sound ridiculous. They don't turn around and then go, you know what? Me being Northern, it's a dialect in which I mess up all the words. It's like, no, you learn to speak English properly if you're going to talk to someone and have them understand you.
I mean, this was the whole thing with the BBC back in the day. They came up with the BBC accent, the received pronunciation, just because we wanted a neutral accent that could broadcast to the entire country.
Can everyone understand what you're saying?
And if we watch something like Clarkson's Farm, for instance, what's his name? Graham?
Oh, I can't remember his name now.
Gary, is it?
Gary?
No, not Caleb. No, the one who...
Everyone understands Caleb.
Yeah, everyone knows Caleb. And
Jared?
Jared, yeah. Nobody can understand what he's saying, and we're English. So, I mean, he's speaking in an English accent. It's certainly an English dialect. I can't for the bloody hell tell what he's saying.
I don't know what he's moaning about.
Yeah, the hot fuzz accent, that's real. It's real, and you wouldn't have people talking on BBC in it because everybody would be going, what? Excuse me? Please repeat yourself. And this is not looking good, bros, because once again, everybody's just pointing out, I mean, look at this. Look at this. You're a company who's just been sued for racial discrimination incorrectly, as far as I'm concerned, and you've got these women staring across at you from the other side of the courtroom. You're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. And I decided to take a quick look.
But I have the best lawyers money can buy. Yeah, but their lawyers are multiracial and women.
And women. Oh, no. We might as well just give them the money right now. I looked into this company, as this litigation firm as well. They're called Crumilla. And this opening page, I will say, does not fill me with hope.
I mean, that's...
Finally, a law firm that gets it. Yeah. Girl power. We're going to take down the patriarchy, girls.
Bad formatting.
Yes, it is. And they've got some things here. The way they talk about it is, as you would expect, very feminine. Emotions and stakes are high, and too often victims are forced to re-traumatize themselves by speaking to unempathetic, out-of-touch lawyers. So the lawyer shows up and goes, right, is the case legit? And they go, don't make me re-traumatize myself. I will say, some of the work that these people do does seem to be legit. They take on sexual harassment cases, rape cases, things that do seem legit. But at the same time, if they're putting those on the same level of severity as a case where I got fired for being late to work over and over and over again, but I think that'd be racism, though, you're kind of diminishing the more legitimate cases that you're taking on at the same time. We can either win you $1 million or some kind of reparations for being sexually assaulted by a superior, or we can win you $11 million because a guy asked you to maybe help wingman him.
Money is money.
Yep, money is money. And they carry on, sensitive issues require sensitive solutions. So we listen, we validate, we contextualize, we help find clarity, then we dive headfirst into getting you the justice you deserve. And the listening, validate, contextualize, finding clarity, these are like the main points that they do for their approach that they do. And they also say in one of the pages that I went on to, we're committed to fighting for, here's the big part, here's the most important part, social change. In the courts and in the streets. Learn what we're doing to make a positive difference in the community. So that's what it's all really about.
The law isn't an altar in which you purify people who have done wrong and therefore purify society. It is something you use to change the world to your whims.
Yes.
Great.
And I actually saw a brilliant little thread talking about this because if in the next one, Helen Andrews, I'm not familiar with this person, so I can't vouch for her, but this thread that she did was actually very interesting. She said she was glad that she read this book, Lady Justice by Dahlia Lithwick, because it offers a glimpse of what the legal profession will look like when it becomes majority female, which I think at this point is a demographic inevitability. And if you click on that right image so we can see a little bit of an excerpt from this book, let's see the highlighted segments.
Yeah, read this.
Yep. The three women justices ignored the formal time limits, talking exuberantly over their flummoxed male colleagues. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg at one point essentially instructed the Chief Justice to add extra time to the clock for a female reproductive freedom advocate, and he complied. I described that day of three female justices and Justice Breyer going to town on cancel as a can train of whoop-ass, so keeping those nice legal professional standards in there, but we couldn't do that because that would be evil and white supremacy. Not the usual controlled analysis from the Stead justices. But what was exceptional and at least in retrospect heartbreaking that morning was that it afforded America a glimpse of what genuine gender parity or near parity might have meant for future women in powerful legal institutions. So, you're screwed. If you have a legitimate case, these women are going to want to talk about it in all sorts of ridiculous ways. If you have an illegitimate case, these women are going to make sure that it goes ahead anyway because they want to change the fabric of society with it. In the next one down, if you scroll down, she highlights a bit here where I didn't go to law school because I had a deep respect for the courts and the rule of law. There you go.
Yeah, I don't use it to try and purify the wrongdoer and the innocent. I use it to destroy things.
The American legal system was fundamentally a machine built to privilege propertied white men, but it's the only thing going and you work with what you have. Can't use the master's tools to destroy the master's house. If this is the way that most women going into into law are thinking about the law, congratulations, you will not have a legal society at all after enough time. If this is how all of them are going in and approaching it, or even the majority of them, this is not how you structure a well-ordered society. And if you go down to the last part in this little thread, she posts this graph. So you can see from about the mid-2010s onwards is when females became the majority of people enrolling in law school, and men are dropping and seemingly continuing to drop. So the more women go in, the more men drop out, the more you're going to get this kind of legal representation.
And no one's concerned about the male drop. That's not a problem. That's progress.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, so that's that.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Contemplation series, this episode on Victorian manners and etiquette. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.